Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto Gave Hinata Another Shot, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Hinata was ecstatic. She couldn't believe what had transpired within the last 15 minutes. She was still in Naruto's embrace he had pulled her into after her teary-eyed yes. She was going to marry the man of her dreams. She couldn't wait to tell Tenten, Ino, Temari, Shino, Neji, Hanabi, her father. And that was when she felt the bottom of her stomach fall through the floor. She felt sick as she thought of how her father would react. Sure, he liked Naruto. He and her fiancé had spent plenty of time together, getting to know one another earlier in her relationship with him. Sure, he approved her seeing him, but the council had been reluctant. She knew that they'd case and won if they heard that the Hyuga heiress was marrying the QB container. Naruto, how are we going to tell my father? She asked as he finally set her down. He turned his head to face her as he had his hand wrung by an excited Iruka. She saw by the look on his face, that he too had started to work out how many problems would arise at their engagement. Oh damn, I hadn't thought about that one, he said, rubbing the back of his head. He received, not only one smack from Sakura, but also from Shizune and Tsunade. All three shouted as one as Jiraiya, Kakashi, Iruka, and Sasuke flattened themselves against the wall, wide-eyed and terrified of the immense anger coming from the three women. You barker, you should have planned on telling HIASHI. What were you gonna do? Wait until the wedding to tell him. They shouted, looking ready to LA terrified Naruto to Precious. The poor guy curled up into the fetal position scared out of his mind, too terrified to answer. The door opened and everyone turned slowly to see a confused Hiashi standing in the doorway, with Hanabi by his side. The young girl smiled at her sister, but Hinata was feeling too sick to even smile back. Tell Hiashi what? He asked, looking at everyone's face. He couldn't shake the feeling that something important had happened, and he had missed it by only seconds. Well, it's really not my place to say anything. I believe these two can offer an explanation, Tsunade said, pointing at a severely pale Hinata, and a curled-up terrified Naruto, as she went back to her desk and sat down. Naruto, Hinata, you wanna tell me what happened? And he suddenly felt his heart stop. Hinata was pale and sick-looking and Naruto was terrified out of his mind. It could only mean one thing. Hinata, you're not pregnant, are you? He practically shouted as he almost jumped over to his eldest daughter, happiness and disappointment on his face at the prospect of being a grandfather. He gripped her arms and she let out a small ep of fear as her looked at her, directly into the eyes so much like her mother's. NN no, uto ssen. I'm NN not pregnant. She stuttered as she looked away from his eyes. He sighed in relief as he released her, standing straight as he gave her a questioning look. Then why are you pale and Naruto scared like a small child in a lightning storm? He asked as Naruto recovered and stood up, staying, as Hiashi noticed, out of arm's reach, fear still apparent. He thought it would take a while to coax the answers from the two teenagers when Naruto finally gave in. Hiashi-sama, I asked Hinata to marry me. And she accepted, Naruto said, backing slowly away as Hiashi started to shake, his face completely blank. Tsunade, Kakashi, and Jiraiya started toward Naruto, hoping that a fight wasn't about to break out. They were all shook when Hiashi let out a roar of joy as he swept his daughter into a hug. Naruto, still confused, wondered if he had lost his mind. That's great. Hinata, my daughter, will finally wed. Hiashi released a dazed, and somewhat pleasantly shocked Hinata as he rounded on Naruto, his face shining with happiness. Hiashi pulled Naruto into a hug that caused the younger man's bones to pop. Naruto thought that he was being crushed to death when Hiashi let him go. I will be proud to welcome such a strong shinobi into my clan. Naruto stood dazed before his goofy grin spread across his face. Arigato, Hiashi-sama. Now, let us inform the council. Hokage-sama, I wish for you to join us. After all, this is a joyous time, he said turning to a bemused Tsunade. She wondered if this was the Hiashi Hyuga who had been so cruel to his daughter so long ago. Very well, I will come, she said as she left the building with the three. Lady Tsunade, where are you going? You still have a lot of paperwork to do. She smiled as she heard Shizune call after her, not even appearing to hear her. Lady Tsunade, Hyuga Compound, Council Chambers. The Hyuga elders sat in disgust as Hiashi told them that the heiress was to marry the demon boy Uzumaki. He had even brought the fifth Hokage along, for why, no one knew. The elders had been downright angered by his insistence to allow Hinata to date the boy, but had allowed it, hoping that when the truth had come out, she'd leave him. Albeit, they had been grateful to the boy for saving her, even allowing them to live together. But they would not allow this. Hiashi Hyuga, how can you allow this? That boy carries the nine-tailed fox. He cannot be trusted. We will not allow this marriage. If you try to let it continue, you will be forced to step down as head of the clan, and you and your daughters will be branded by the caged bird. The eldest member stood up, glaring at an extremely angry Hiashi. You dare threaten my family. I should kill you now for even saying that. Why would you not allow it? This boy, this man, has done more for my daughter than any of you have ever done. He has brought her happiness and safety. Would you deny that? Give me one good reason for your decision. If, and only if I agree with it, I may take what you're saying under consideration. And do not give me that bull about the demon. Naruto has proven that he is not that monster, but instead, a member of the Leaf Village. Very well. All Hyugas are to be married to exceptionally strong shinobi, possessing many outstanding skills and abilities. The eldest Hyuga council member stated. And he has shown that. He has even mastered the fourth's own personal jutsu. The Rasengan, Tsunade said, stepping forward. Hiashi nodded in thanks to the Hokage. We do not deny this. However, the shinobi in question must also come from a well-respected and trusted family. Seeing as this boy, he pointed at Naruto, doesn't know who his family is, he is ineligible to marry the heiress. Why? Hinata burst into tears, screaming at the clan elders, taking them by surprise. Why must he fulfill your criteria? Why can't he just fulfill mine? She said as Naruto placed an arm around her waist, smirking at the looks that the Hyuga elders were giving him. He decided it was time to tell them. So, you're saying that I have to come from a well-respected and trusted family, correct? He asked, grinning at the confused elder. Yes, that is what we said. He said, trying to figure out what Naruto was up to. Well, I don't see a problem. I know who my father was and he was well trusted and respected here in the village. He said smiling. Tsunade stepped toward him, about to ask him if this was a wise course of action, when the Hyuga elder's curiosity got the better of him. Who was he? He asked, skeptical. Minato Namikaze, better known as the fourth Hokage. He said proudly as the elders almost flipped out from the news. That's not possible. The fourth wasn't even married. The older man said, fear on his face. Oh, yes he was. To Kushina Uzumaki from the land of Whirlpool. They married in secret, Tsunade stated, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. The elders began talking amongst themselves, all except the oldest one who simply looked shocked. He had lost his case. And quite possibly, his life. You know, now that you mention it, he does look a lot like Minato. Yeah, he does. So, do you still have a problem with this marriage? Hiashi challenged. As predicted, the clan elders agreed to the marriage. Hiashi smiled as he looked over to see Hinata sobbing with happiness into Naruto's jacket. The young man was trying to calm her down as he smiled at the woman he would soon wake up to every morning. As they began to walk away, Hiashi stopped and turned to the eldest clan member, with a glare that would have caused Orochimaru to flinch. One more thing, he said, voice laced with hatred. In a split second, he had disappeared. A sudden gasp caused everyone to look at the older council member. Hiashi stood in front of him, Byakugan activated, hand extended with his palm flat against the older man's C. The older man coughed up B before falling to the floor, S. If any of you ever threaten my family with the curse seal or even try to brand it on my daughters, I will kill each and every last one of you. He said as he walked over to his daughter, future son-in-law, and a rather surprised-looking Hokage. 2 weeks later, Naruto was happy. He was going to marry the woman he loved more than anything else. He couldn't help but to grin like an idiot as he continued to walk down the street, getting many waves and congratulations from the villagers. He still hadn't told everyone about who his parents were yet, but he knew it could wait. He continued down the street, and entered Ichiraku ramen stand and was greeted by a loud cheer and pats on his back from Sasuke, Shikamaru, Choji, Neji, Gaara, Shino, Kankuro, Lee, Tsuki, and Ayami. All of them were smiling at him. Even Gaara, who was finishing up a cookie, sorry, couldn't help myself. He grinned as he sat down, not even hungry. He had just wanted to sit in a familiar place and enjoy the feelings that were coursing through him. What can I get you, Naruto-kun? Ayami asked, smiling at him. Just a bowl of miso ramen. I'm not too hungry, he said, smiling. One bowl coming up, she said brightly. Naruto was still beaming like a dork. Naruto, congratulations on your engagement. May you and Hinata stay youthful and love each other forever, said a smiling Lee. Outer now where? Guy popped his head into the stand as Lee gave Naruto a thumbs up, teeth shining. He teared up. Lee, I'm so proud of you. Still tearing up. Guy sensei, I will always make you proud. Lee was likewise tearing up. Lee, Guy sensei. Lee, Guy sensei. Both men were crying as they hugged each other. Naruto and the others were extremely disturbed as they watched the pair run side by side down the street, still crying. Okay, that was creepy. Anyway, congrats, Dobe, Sasuke said. Naruto smiled at him. Let's give 3 cheers for Naruto, who has just taken the biggest step in his life, Tsuki said, coming over with Naruto's ramen. Everyone in the stand cheered so loudly that the passersby scrammed in terror and took off running down the street, thinking the village was under attack. Or, damn, come on Choji, Shino. We'd better set people right or there'll be a riot. How troublesome. Shikamaru, Shino, and Choji gave Naruto congratulations as they tore out of the ramen stand, trying to calm down the villagers who were running in several directions. So, you're tying the knot. Who's the girl? Kankuro asked. Hinata Hyuga, Naruto said cheerfully. Neji patted him on the back, grinning. Yes, I was surprised that Hiashi had allowed it. But, from what I hear, he only acted the way he did because of pressure from the council. He had them disbanded yesterday and had the branch family and the main family become one. He even removed the curse marks, Neji said, showing them his completely smooth forehead. That's great, Neji. I'm happy for you. I guess I didn't need to do anything after all, Naruto said. Actually, you did. Hiashi saw how much Hinata and I had changed because of you and decided that he too needed to change. Not just him, but the whole clan as well. He told Hinata and Hanabi that if they didn't want to become the clan leader, that he didn't mind. You definitely helped, Naruto, Neji said, smiling at a surprised Naruto. Before anyone could say anything, Jiraiya and Kakashi entered the ramen stand smiling. Naruto knew that this couldn't bode well. There he is. Naruto, we have to know, when is your bachelor party? Jiraiya asked, grinning. Bachelor party, he said, somewhat confused. You mean you don't know? Kakashi said, shocked. It's the night before the wedding where you celebrate your last night as an unmarried man. Why would I want to celebrate that? Naruto asked, puzzled, getting groans from both men. It's the last night that you can act on your impulses. A night to enjoy yourself with your friends and family. Gaara said, having finished his cookie. Yeah, Gaara's right. So when is it? Kankuro asked. Well, it would have to be next Thursday, seeing as the wedding is on Friday, he said. He didn't notice the twinkle in both the pervert's eyes. So, Naruto, who's your best man? Neji asked. That's easy. It's team here, he said, jabbing a finger at a surprised Sasuke. Well, that ruins my day. I'm the Dobe's best man. Oh well, could be worse, Sasuke said, smiling. How? Little brother, a voice said suddenly. Looking behind them, Itachi Uchiha was slumped to the ground, being hurt. Sasuke roared with anger and began to charge up a Chidori as Naruto began to start up his Rasengan. But both stopped in shock as Jiraiya and Kakashi rushed over to the man's side. Itachi, what happened? Jiraiya asked, checking his wounds. Inuzuka found me out. He told them that I was a spy, the Uchiha said. Jiraiya was satisfied to see that the man would live. He turned to see the shocked faces of Sasuke and Naruto. Gaara had left with Kunkoro to find more cookies. I know this is strange, but you just have to trust me. Itachi is on our side. We need to get him to the hospital. With that, Kakashi lifted him up and carried him to the hospital. Hinata was walking happily humming as she strolled through the village with Ino, Sakura, Tenten, Temari, and Hanabi. Both girls had been surprised at their father telling them that they didn't have to be the clan head, and could lead normal lives if they wanted. Both had jumped at the chances, leaving him to smile sadly, saying that since Nitha wanted the job, that Neji was next in line. All the girls had been looking through town, discussing the wedding that had been planned down to the smallest detail. She smiled as she looked at her friends. As she did that, she suddenly felt dizzily and dropped to the ground, gasping for air as she felt extremely sick. Sure enough, she rolled onto her side in time to empty her stomach on the ground. Hunched on all fours, she shuddered violently as the girls gathered around her. You alright, Hinata? You feeling well? Ino asked as Hinata leaned back, sitting on her knees. She looked extremely pale and was shaking slightly. I fine. Just a little sick, she said, feeling a little better. Sakura, however, was looking at her with interest. Hinata, has this happened before? As in recently? She asked, still studying her friend. Hinata didn't even have to think about it. Hi. Every morning this week. I think I caught a bug, she said, as if it was nothing. The other girls began to grin as Sakura placed her hands over Hinata's stomach, concentrating her chakra. After a few minutes, she pulled her hands back, smiling wider. I think I know what's wrong. But let's get you to the hospital just to verify it, she said, helping her confused friend to her feet. Together they walked to the hospital. The grills arrived at the hospital 10 minutes later. Hinata had stopped shivering by the time they got there and was confused as to why Sakura had to confirm what she thought was wrong. Sakura, is it really bad that you need to get a second opinion? Hinata asked, somewhat afraid. Well, it can be bad, but on the other hand, it can be good. I just need Lady Tsunade to confirm it. Then you have to decide if it's good or not, Sakura said, smiling. Somehow, Hinata felt a little better. After a few minutes, Sakura found the Hokage, and together, the 6 women walked into a nearby exam room. Tsunade instructed Hinata lay on the bed and relax as she too placed her hands over her stomach and began to gather chakra. After a few minutes, Tsunade pulled her hands away, a smile on her face. You were correct, Sakura. It is exactly what you thought. Good job, she said, turning to a pleased Sakura. Arigato. Now, we need to find Naruto, she said. Can I know what's wrong with me before you tell my fiancé? Hinata asked, somewhat irritated. Tsunade nodded to Sakura, who smiled at Hinata. Hinata, you're about a week pregnant. Hinata felt her world suddenly fill with happiness and joy. Her face broke into a true smile, one that only Naruto had seen. She watched as Sakura left, yelling back into the room. Well, I got to go find Naruto so you can tell him, mommy, Sakura said, grinning. Naruto and Sasuke stood outside Itachi's door, trying to make sense of what had just transpired. After 10 minutes of waiting, the door opened and they were allowed to enter. Sitting up on the bed, hospital gown on, was a smiling Itachi. His smile quickly vanished as shame crossed his face. All Sasuke did was glare at him. Naruto was stumped as to Itachi's actions. Jiraiya, who was sitting in the window, decided to explain at that moment. I know you're both wondering why Itachi isn't S yet. The answer is that he is a spy for the village. Okay, so he's not S for joining the Akatsuki. What about the S of our clan? Sasuke challenged. Itachi gave Sasuke a small smile before he started. Because they had planned on betraying the village. Father had been planning on allying with the Akatsuki in an attempt to gain control of the village. I confronted him about it, and he attacked. I was forced to kill all of the clan except you. I didn't kill you because you didn't have anything to do with the plan. I'm sorry for what I put you through, little brother, but I had to make sure my cover was believable. Sasuke stood in stunned silence as a tear trickled down his face. Itachi also was silently crying as he watched his brother. You could have told me, Sasuke whispered, voice cracking slightly. Itachi smiled at him. You were 8. You had just saw me kill mother and father. On top of that, I had to gain the evil brother cover by making you hate me, he said, still crying slightly. Sasuke did the one thing that shocked everyone. He walked over and hugged his brother as both of them broke into sobs. Naruto felt happy for Sasuke. His family had come back to him. Signaling Jiraiya, he let him know that he had to head home. Jiraiya nodded as Naruto left the two brothers alone and started to head to the lobby when he came face to face to a smiling Sakura. What's up, Sakura? Why so happy? He asked, nervously. Oh, I have my reasons, and you'll be happy too, when you find out, Daddy. She teased him. He wondered if she had gotten into the Hokage's sake again. Okay. Hey, I thought you were out with Hinata. He said, remembering clearly that he'd been told that they would be out shopping. I was. Until we had to bring Hinata here. Don't freak. She's alright, she said as panic flashed across Naruto's face. I'll take you to her. Wait a second. Why'd you call me, Daddy? Sakura didn't even look back at him. Turns out, Hinata was just down the hall, 4 doors down from Itachi. When he entered, he saw a lot of people. Tenten, Ino, Shino, Choji, Hiashi, Hanabi, Temari, Shikamaru, Kakashi, Tsunade, Shizune, and Kurenai. Everyone was smiling as Naruto entered. Why's everyone so happy? He asked a blushing Hinata. He walked over and sat on the chair next to her waiting for someone to tell him what was going on. Naruto-kun, I have a question. She asked him, still blushing, not making eye contact. Only smiling. What is it? He asked, not worried about what it might be. What would you say if I told you that we needed to start picking out furniture for the baby's room? She asked, blazing crimson. What do you? His face went completely blank as what she said sunk in. You mean you're. Naruto was unable to say anything as he looked at a smiling Hinata. Hi, I'm pregnant, she said, smiling brightly. You're pregnant, he repeated, realization dawning in him. I'm pregnant, she said, still smiling, her blush not as bright. That means, you're gonna be a mother to a child, he said, his face splitting into a wide grin. He grabbed Hinata's hand. Hi, and you're going to be a father to our child, she said, giving his hand a small skeze as he began to cry with happiness. I'm gonna be a father. Yes, he said, punching the air as he jumped up. He started jumping up and down for a few seconds before leaning in and giving Hinata a loving K. All around the room, everyone congratulated an ecstatic Naruto and a smiling Hinata as they left the room, giving the expecting parents some time alone. They ended up in a deep hug, both crying with joy as the fact that they were going to be parents. Naruto woke on the day of the wedding, with his head spinning. He cursed Jiraiya and Kakashi. Both had decided it was a night for drinking and had forced Naruto to have a few rounds. Mainly because they laughed at him when he told them he wouldn't do it. They had retorted by saying that if a man was too chicken to have a few shots of sake, then that man could never be Hokage. And of course, he decided to prove them wrong massively, and he now had to pay for it. Looking around the room, he saw that his friends were already up and about, dealing with their hangovers as well. All except Jiraiya and Kakashi, who Naruto woke up by S-pans over both their heads. Yelping, they shot into the air, trying to see what had hit them. Standing before them was a triumphant Naruto, cast iron pans in both hands. Now, that is the last time I ever drink with you two. At least Lee was smart and didn't drink any. Naruto said, giving Lee a smile that the other man returned. Naruto didn't know that Lee went crazy when even a little alcohol entered his system. Naruto, Sasuke, Neji, Lee, Kakashi, Jiraiya, Iruka, Shino, and Choji all grumbled and groaned as they began to overcome their hangovers with aspirin and Pepto-Bismol as they got dressed and sat down at Sasuke's kitchen table. They had the party here so the Hinata and the girls could use their apartment to get ready and to hang out last night. Naruto himself had come straight over to Sasuke's after Naruto and Hinata had left the academy, so he wouldn't see her for 24 hours before the wedding. He still had 4 hours to go. Sasuke had already been preparing breakfast when a knock sounded through the house. Going to the door, Sasuke was surprised to see a bandaged and smiling Itachi. May I come in, Sasuke? He asked, slightly wincing. Sure, Itachi. We were just about to have breakfast. Wanna join us? Sasuke grinned as Itachi nodded, smiling. Entering the kitchen, he noticed that there were a lot of people sitting in the room. But it was to be expected. He had heard that Naruto was getting married and that they had his bachelor party here. Itachi smiled as he walked over to Naruto, hand extended. Naruto Uzumaki. It is a pleasure to truly meet you. I apologize for our last encounter. I had to keep up the act with kiss him there. Itachi said, watching the blonde's face for any hint of anger. He was pleasantly surprised when the younger man smiled and shook Itachi's hand. No sweat. If the team trusts you, that's good and it for me. Naruto said brightly. Why do you call him that? Itachi asked. Well, it just kinda stuck. Like how he calls me, Barker, all the time. Naruto explained, starting on his eggs and bacon. Itachi sat down at the end of the table and felt glad to be home. At 4, Naruto and the guys got themselves into their tuxes and started to help each other out by brushing lint and hair off of themselves. After a half hour of that, the 9 men plus Itachi began walking to the local church and got ready for the wedding of their friends. Hinata was in the dressing room at the church, butterflies in her stomach as Sakura and Shizune helped her get ready. You look beautiful, Hinata, Sakura said as she looked over the white dress. It was starpless and very form-fitting, showing of her attractive features. Her hair was pulled back into an elegant bun with her bangs still showing. Her skin had a soft glow as she examined herself in the mirror. She was happy to see her father and Hanabi in the doorway. Turning, she saw that her father was smiling with a tear traveling down her face. Hanabi was smiling at Hinata in her lavender dress, holding the flower basket. Hinata, I can't believe the day is here. While I am happy for you, I can't help but to feel that I missed my little girl growing up into the beautiful young woman I see before me. He said. He walked over to her and gave her a hug. She smiled as they broke apart. Your mother would be proud of you if she were here. I too am proud, he said as he continued to smile. You're all done, Hinata. That Barker will probably pass out at the sight of you, Sakura said. Hinata looked over at her bridesmaids and smiled. Each of them wore a lavender strapless dress that was just as tight on them as her wedding dress was on her. Sakura helped her put her veil on as soon as entered the room, wearing her Hokage robes. It's time, she said. All the girls lined up with Hanabi in front and began to leave the room, one at a time. Finally, Hinata and Hiashi were left in the room. Hinata was extremely nervous as the bridal march sounded. Together, father and daughter left the room and began the long walk down the aisle. Naruto's head turned as he heard the bridal march start and his face broke into a wide smile. Up aisle came a smiling Hinata and a solemn Hiashi. There were awes coming from the crowd, only making Hinata blush even more. Her and Hiashi stopped at the stairs as soon as it began. Who gives away this woman? She asked. I, Hiashi Hyuga. He let his arm fall as he watched Hinata take Naruto's hand. He moved to his seat and watched, happier than he'd been in years. Naruto led Hinata up to the altar and turned to face the woman he was going to spend the rest of his life with. Tsunade smiled as she continued. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the marriage of 2 leaf shinobi. Both of them are strong and loving. Today they will become one. If anyone does not want them to marry, speak now or forever hold you peace. The room was silent. Nobody in the room, in the entire village for that matter, had anything wrong with it. Tsunade nodded as she continued. Now, I understand it that you two wish to recite your vows. Naruto. Naruto smiled as he continued to hold on to both of Hinata's hands. Hinata Hyuga, you have been my most treasured person. You have cheered for me when others wouldn't. You loved me when no one else would. Without you, I would have lost myself and my way. I love you so much, he said, eyes misting. Hinata let a tear slide down her face as she smiled at him. Very good, Hinata. Naruto Uzumaki. You have been my inspiration. You have given me courage and the strength to change myself for the better. You always tried to help me when I couldn't help myself. I would like nothing more than to always be with you, loving you and being loved by you, she said softly. Naruto smiled at her. The rings. Konohamaru stepped forward, holding a cushion. Naruto reached down and picked up one of the rings. He slid the gold band onto her left hand, smiling. Hinata then picked the last ring up and slid it onto his left hand. They both continued to smile. By the power vested in me, as Godamine Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, I now present you Mr. and Mrs. Uzumaki. You can kei her now, Naruto. Naruto grinned as her lifted the veil and kissed his bride softly as the room broke into cheers and applause. Naruto was happy as they walked down the aisle and headed for the reception. All the guests entered the Hyuga compound and the reception had begun. They had all laughed when the newlyweds see the cake. Hinata had tried to feed Naruto, but ended up the cake into his face as he did the same to her. They both came away laughing with cake on their faces. Now came the words from the best man. Sasuke stood up and waited for everyone to quiet down. Well, here we are. I had never thought that a barker like Naruto would find the perfect woman. I know that as best man, I am expected to give my best to the newlyweds as they start life together. The only thing I can say is that, Hinata, you got a lot of work ahead of you to get Naruto up to a mature level. He smirked. Everyone in the room laughed as Naruto shot a quick glare at Sasuke as Hinata smiled. Seriously, though, Naruto, you have finally gotten the family you have always wanted. I know that Tiz is probably a little overcautious, but don't mess up what you have. Sasuke placed a hand on his best friend's shoulder before he sat down. After a few more words of wisdom for the two, Sasuke, Neji, Choji, and Shikamaru all stood up and went to the stage picking up their instruments. Everyone watched as Naruto and Hinata stepped onto the dance floor. The guys began to play a really catchy song as the pair began to dance. Quote, everyone watched as the pair began to dance passionately, not even caring about the eyes on them. Quote, Sasuke began a guitar solo as the couple picked up the intensity of their moves, brining cheers from everyone. As the music dropped to only drums, Hinata broke away from him and went to the other side of the floor dancing seductively and playfully, leaving Naruto to stand, open-mouthed, gazing at her. Quote, she used a single finger to summon him to her. And when they began to move again, this time, breathing somewhat heavy. As the instruments dropped off, Naruto pulled Hinata close and the pair as the song came to an end. Quote, Sasuke and the everyone ended the song as everyone began to clap as the two broke apart, faces flushed. The four men summoned shadow clones and the clones took over playing. They had gotten halfway through the song higher when the doors flew open and a figure wearing a coat with a hood raised stood in the doorway. Everyone gasped as they saw that the figure was wounded. Help, please. That was all the figure said before it fell to the ground. As the stranger fell, Jiraiya caught them, causing the coat's hood to fall back, revealing a teenaged blonde girl that looked just like a female version of Naruto, minus the whisker marks. Behind her stood a young girl in her early teens, shaking with fear and tears. She too was blonde, but not like the young woman in Jiraiya's arms. Naruto, who had been watching Hiashi and Hinata dance, had been over there as quickly as Jiraiya. He was completely shocked. How could this be possible? Jiraiya saw his face and felt a little sad that this happened now. Naruto, I know you're confused, but I promise I will tell you everything. Right now we have to get her to the hospital. Yes, she needs treatment. Sakura, Shizune, come with me. Naruto, get the other girl there. Jiraiya will head out with us. Tsunade said as the four left. Naruto turned to the younger girl as Hinata came over to him. Naruto gave the girl a reassuring smile as he bent down to keep eye contact. Hey, I'm gonna take you to the HP hospital so you can be there when your friend wakes up. He said, seeing the shocked look on the girl's face. You look like Tokiko-san. She whimpered, still somewhat shocked. My name is Naruto. This is my wife Hinata. What's your name? He asked, trying to get her mind off of her friend. Kira. Will she be okay? Naruto nodded his head. She's with my friends and the best medical ninja I have ever met. You wanna go see her? The young girl nodded and took the hand Naruto had offered. Together the three left the stunned and shocked guest and headed to the hospital. The three had been sitting in the lobby for over an hour already. The young girl, Kira, had fallen asleep next to Naruto and Hinata. Both of them were still in their wedding clothes. Naruto and Hinata sat together, watching the young girl as she slept. They had promised to stay with her until her cousin, as it was found out, was up. They had already seen Jiraiya twice. When he had left and when he had come back, crying holding a wrapped-up body. After another half-hour wait, Sakura came out and told him it was safe to see the patient. Naruto woke up Kira and told her. She was still sleepy, so he offered to carry her to the room. She had accepted. Together, Naruto and Hinata walked to the room, with Kira cradled in the blonde man's arms. When they reached the room, he set her down. He saw Tsunade standing outside the door. She motioned for the pair to stay beside her as she took Kira's hand and entered the room. The young girl let out a cry of happiness and ran over to her cousin, hugging her tightly. The blonde woman smiled as she broke away from the embrace. Turning, she saw the Hokage and bowed her head in respect. Thank you, Lady Hokage, for helping us. Not to be rude, but what of my mother? She was wounded as well. The blonde girl asked. Tsunade sadly shook her head, watching as the young woman started to cry silently as she lowered her head. The Hokage hated to do what she had to do next, but knew there was no beating around the bush. I know you're upset at the loss of your mother, but I have to ask. Why were you traveling with Kushina Uzumaki? Thank you, Lady Hokage, for helping us. Not to be rude, but what of my mother? She was wounded as well. The blonde girl asked. Tsunade sadly shook her head, watching as the young woman started to cry silently as she lowered her head. The Hokage hated to do what she had to do next, but knew there was no beating around the bush. I know you're upset at the loss of your mother, but I have to ask. Why were you traveling with Kushina Uzumaki? The room went silent as the young blonde woman simply stared at Tsunade with shock and fear on her face. Naruto himself felt his jaw drop as Hinata gasped, putting one hand to her mouth while placing the other on Naruto's shoulder. Sakura placed both hands over her mouth. Tsunade waited for the young woman to answer, still blocking Naruto from view. How do you know my mother? The young blonde asked, tears still falling. First, I'd like to know your names and the answer to my question before I answer any of yours. She said flatly. She was glad that Naruto hadn't tried to come forward yet. She knew he was shocked that Kushina's name had been spoken by this woman. The blonde gulped as she brushed her blonde bangs away from her face. She whipped the tears from her face and looked back at the Hokage. My name is Tokiko Uzumaki. This is my cousin Kira Uzumaki. And the reason why we were traveling with my mother was because we were trying to get away from a group that chased us all the way from the land of Whirlpool. They call themselves the Dogs of War. The young woman said, placing a hand on her cousin's shoulder. You're from the land of Whirlpool. That's a long way away. Why were you being chased? Tsunade asked, wondering who these Dogs of War were. Because their leader is insane. They arrived at our village 2 days ago. They demanded logging and medical care. Our cage didn't want to cause any trouble, so he allowed it. That was when our trouble began. I was out walking with Mother and Kira when their leader spotted me. He shouted something, a name I think. She said, trying to remember. He said, Naruto. She said, remembering the strange thing he had shouted. Everyone in the room felt their hearts drop. But Tokiko didn't pay attention. Of course I didn't understand it, but Mother did. I saw her face light up for a moment before the man pulled a kunai and charged us, his 50-plus friends too. We would have fought, but we had Kira with us, so we did the only thing we could. We ran. She paused, recalling what had happened. We didn't have any contact with them all day yesterday. They finally caught up to us this morning. Mother used her summoning jutsu to call forth a fox with 4 tails. She spoke to it, telling it to slow down the attackers. The fox agreed and disappeared. We thought we were in the clear until we were less than 5 miles out from the village. They ambushed us. Mother told me to take Kira and continue on to the village. Tokiko started to cry a little. We started to sun when a barrage of kunai caught me from my side. But I pushed on through. I knew Mother didn't stand a chance against those odds. Maybe if it had only been 10, even 20, she would have made it. The young woman began to sob. Naruto could only stand there, tears streaking down his face. Hinata hugged him, trying to help him through this. If the information was accurate, Kiba had been responsible for the death of his mother. I entered village and head toward the strongest gathering of chakra, thinking that it was where the Hokage was. And you know the rest. She said, whipping her eyes again. Before Tsunade could say anything, Jiraiya entered through the window. I've moved her to the room next door. There's no sign of the attackers. At least not the ones that got away. She killed 30 of those bastards before they got her. Grandpa Jiraiya. Both girls shouted. Jiraiya turned, startled by their shouts, but smiled. Tokiko. Kira. You girls are all right, he said as he walked over and gave the girls a hug. Is Mom okay? Tokiko asked, as Jiraiya ended the hug. He shook his head. No, she took quite a beating. But she wants to see you three, he said looking around the room. Three? Tokiko asked, confused as Shita began looking around. Yes, you, Kira and your brother, he said, seeing Naruto standing completely still. My brother? Tokiko asked, turning back to Jiraiya. Yes, Naruto, you and Hinata need to come, Jiraiya said, snapping Naruto out of his grief. He placed an arm around Hinata and stepped out from behind Hinata, causing Tokiko to gasp. He looks like me. How? She asked, he waist-long blonde hair swirling as she rounded on Jiraiya. He held up a hand. I'll explain it to all of you. Right now, your mother is waiting. Jiraiya helped Tokiko to her feet and led the four to the next room. They filed in and saw a young woman with fiery red hair sitting up in her bed, looking pale and shaky. As the door opened, she looked over, and when she saw them, tears began to fall. Tokiko and Kira ran to the woman and hugged her as she returned the gesture. Girls, I'm sorry, she said softly. They broke the embrace as she leaned back on her bed, looking over at Naruto. All he could do was stare at the woman in front of him. Naruto, you look so much like Minato. But from what I've heard, you act like I did at your age. She flashed him the same smile he had, her short red hair making her face stand out. Mom? He asked in a whisper. She nodded her head, but the sudden action caused her to feel faint. She laid back on the bed, giving him a small smile. Yes, I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry to both of you, she said as the tears continued to fall. Naruto felt tears of his own running down his face, his wife next to him crying silently. For what? Tokiko asked, trying to hold back her tears, Kira crying as well. For not brining you both together sooner. I wish that my children could have grown up together, she said, her face going white. After all, twins aren't meant to be apart. Naruto looked at the girl, Tokiko, as she looked at him. He knew that what his mother had said was true. And so did she. Naruto, who is that with you? She's lovely, his mother said. This is Hinata Hyuga, my wife, he said, smiling at her. Hinata tightened her hand a little. Oh, well, it is nice to meet you, Hinata. Kushina smiled at her. It is nice to meet you, Mrs. Uzumaki. Hinata gave her a small bow as Kushina narrowed her eyes. Are you with child? She asked. Hi, 2 weeks. That makes me feel better. Naruto, she gasped in pain. Yes, he said, moving closer with Hinata. Take care of your sister and Kuzan for me. And take care of your wife and child. She started to close her eyes. Naruto felt a lump form in his tea. I will. I never go back on my word. That's my Nindo. After all, I'll be Hokage someday, he said, his tea tightening up. His mother smiled as her eyes closed. Just like me and your father. I'm sorry to just show up and S on you, but I don't think I'll live much longer. She started to breathe slowly, her eyes shut completely, causing Naruto, Tokiko, Kira, Jiraiya, Sakura, and Hinata to cry. Seeing my children in the same room was my last wish. I got it, she smiled as she passed before them. Tokiko dropped to her knees, head in hands as Kira placed an arm around her, both blondes crying. Naruto felt pain and rage. Hinata stood next to him, tears rolling down her face. Naruto let out a roar of pain and rage that reverberated through the village. Nobody could do anything for the Uzumakis as the pain and grief was heard around the village. Naruto, Tokiko, Kira, and Hinata sat in the courtyard, trying to comfort each other. It had been 3 days since Kushina Uzumaki had and they had yet to even talk to each other. Naruto, of course, had allowed his newfound family stay with him at his house. As they sat in silence, Jiraiya arrived, wearing all black like the four of them. All right, it's time your guys were told, he said, sitting down. The four looked up at him, faces sad. As you were informed, Naruto, Tokiko, you were both twins. Naruto, you were born first, making you the oldest. Now, the reason you were both separated and not told was because your parents feared that one day, his enemies would find out about one of you. They didn't want you both to so, when you were born, Tokiko, your mother took you to her home village. Minato would keep Naruto here. It was painful to decide upon, but they had to do it. Unfortunately, that was the same night that the Nine Tails attacked. October 10th, 15 years ago. He watched for some kind of response. All he got were stares. He continued. Now, as you both know, Minato is sealing the demon in Naruto, so he never knew a parent's love. Tokiko, you, however, were lucky. You got to spend 15 years with your mother. Right now, you both need each other. You're all family now. He finished standing up. He turned to leave when a scream echoed behind him. Turning around, he saw Tokiko facing away from him, holding Naruto's fist. Looking at the man's face, he saw pain and anger. What the hell do you think you're doing? Tokiko shouted as Hinata pulled Naruto back, calming him down. Grandpa Jiraiya didn't do anything. He never told me. Do you know how it feels to not have a family? The pain of always being alone. He said quietly, holding Hinata. Tokiko looked at her brother and understood where he was coming from. No, I don't, but I know how stubborn Mom could be. If her and Dad told him not to say anything, then he didn't have a choice. She said, looking at him. I suppose you're right. I suppose it's time to stop acting like this and get on with our lives. If what I heard about Mom is true, she wouldn't want us grieving for long. He said, smiling slightly. Yeah, she wouldn't. His sister said, smile identical to his. Come on, I'll show you around. You to Kira, he said as the young girl hugged her cousin, Tokiko. Sounds great. Together the four walked down the street into a new day. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.